Hey friends, it's Lisa from Habits and Home. I am out walking around our farm. It is a beautiful day here in North Florida, and you would not think that a hurricane is fast approaching. It is actually going to probably land on my birthday, September 29th. What a birthday present for me. So around the house, Jared is working on our back porch, the trim around our back door. We recently replaced some of our boards on our house, and we needed to replace the trim around the board. We bought a old farmhouse, 1950 farmhouse, and we are slowly renovating all of the things around our farm and around our house, and we've really been enjoying it. So make sure that you follow along with us as I share more of our renovation projects. The kids are out riding bikes. They actually took some eggs to a neighbor down the road, an elderly neighbor. She is absolutely the sweetest, and my daughter has been collecting eggs for her and selling them to her, and it's been a great little side job for my kids. The chickens are out dusting themselves. We like to let them out during the day if we're outside. That way they're not pooping all over the back porch and all over the yard and getting everywhere. We also have 6 new baby chicks, and so we're trying to acclimate the entire flock together and get them used to each other. The other day, my friends and I had a mom's day out doing some thrifting around a local town, and it was so much fun. We ended up going to like 4 different thrift stores, and I personally love thrifting. I always have, not for the fact that things are cheap, but I love that you get to find unique items to add to your house. You also find better made items because they're typically made a couple of years ago, and now products seem to be made cheaply and don't last very long. I also like to go to thrift stores because I like to reuse items that have been discarded from other people. I tend to, when I'm decluttering for my clients, drop off items to thrift stores a lot. So I know the types of items that are donated to thrift stores. They're not always bad or in bad condition. So it's a great place to find things that you need in your home at a good price. Also finding unique items instead of mass-produced items that you would find in department stores that everyone else is going to have in their homes. So today I want to share with you some items that I personally picked up at the thrift stores and why I picked them up and how I'm using them in my home. Going. First of all, let me share with you that I live as a minimalist. I don't like to have a lot of clutter in my house. So when I approach thrifting, I always approach it with a thought in mind of what I'm actually looking for. What I've needed in my house before, what I've said that I've needed, what I have been dreaming of or desiring or wanting. I try to approach my thrift shopping trip with a purpose. Now, sometimes the purpose is just for fun, just to look around, just to go on a hunt and see what we can see. I probably won't even come home with anything. My daughter always says that I will put a bunch of things in my cart and push it around the store, and before I leave, I have returned everything back to the shelves. Because I as a minimalist, I still like to shop. I just give myself time to think about it, think of how it's going to fit into my life, where it's going to fit in my home. Because when you bring something in your home, you make 3 decisions for every item in your house, okay? The first decision is when you buy it, okay? You have to decide that you're going to buy it. The second decision is where you're going to put it. And then the third decision is when you're going to get rid of it. Okay, those are just the minimum of 3. Sometimes you may make even more decisions for that item if you move and you have to decide if you're going to keep that item then or get rid of it, if you're going to relocate that item, if you're going to reorganize that item. There are so many decisions that go into each individual item that you are thinking about purchasing and bringing into your home. So that being said, I sometimes, when I go thrifting, put items in my cart, and yes, push my cart around, and I'm thinking about that item. I'm thinking, do I really want to commit to this item for the long haul? And if the answer is no, and I'm just like, I think I'll hold out and look for a better item or something later on, or at a better price, or yeah, I really don't need that extra junk. And still to this day, there are items that I buy that I end up regretting. So that is how I approach every shopping trip, whether it's to the thrift store or to TJ Maxx or any department store. I always really think through each and every purchase. So on the trip that I'm about to share with you, I had already had in mind a list of items, like a wish list of items that I'm hunting for. And I go thrift shopping pretty often. I'm gonna share several videos with you, probably at least one thrifting video with you a month. So if you love to thrift, you are gonna love those videos, going hunting with us and finding all the treasures. And my daughter actually loves to thrift as well. And I will share with you one of our vintage store trips that we took, and it was so much fun. So stay tuned for that later on. So on this trip, I actually found a lot of items that were on my wish list, and I'm gonna share them with you. So the first store that we went to, we looked around. They had a lot of clothes, they had a lot of houseware stuff, they had a lot of lamps, and a lamp was one of the things that was on my wish list, but I knew that there were no lamps there. My daughter is pretty particular about the kind of lamps that she wants in her room. She's trying to transition from this farmhouse country look to a more sophisticated mid-century modern look. But at the same time, she loves vintage stuff as well. So I didn't find any lamps there, but I found this really good deal on a KitchenAid. Now, I have been avoiding getting a KitchenAid for quite some time. It seemed like everyone has a KitchenAid. It sits on their kitchen counter and collects dust. And if they do use it, then it's very rare. They use it at Christmas time. And so I just have always avoided buying one. But in recent years, I've gotten into bread baking and wanting to do more homemaking and cooking from scratch. And I really thought, okay, if I want to be consistent at bread making, I probably need to get a KitchenAid with a bread hook because I haven't been as consistent as I really want to be. And I figured that if I had a KitchenAid and I put it out, it would remind me, hey, make your bread today. It's super simple. It's not going to take a lot of work. You could just put the ingredients in, let the KitchenAid do its magic, and then put it in your bread basket, let it rise, and then in the next morning, you can have fresh bread. So I've been thinking about this KitchenAid for over 2 years, and KitchenAids are pretty expensive. They go anywhere from $2.99 all the way up to like $7.99. And I have just really, over the years, wanted to invest my money into things that I knew were going to last. So instead of going the cheap route and always buying the things because they're really cheap and inexpensive, instead of buying a lot, I buy a little of things that cost a little bit more. So I'm investing my money in better quality items. So instead of finding a knockoff brand of a kitchen mixer, I stumbled upon this KitchenAid, and it was a great price at only $150, which is half the price of it at retail. And so I didn't get it at first. I actually waited until we rounded our circle of thrift stores. I came back and I asked them if they would negotiate on the price. And this particular store doesn't negotiate on price until the item has sat on the shelf for at least 7 days. So like I said, it took some time to think about it, circle back around, and on the way home, I swung by there and I picked it up. I don't like to keep a lot of things on my counter, but because this item is so big and bulky, and I plan to use it at least every other to every 3 days, and I also wanted to remind me to use my mixer to make bread. Things that you want to be reminded of, I recommend leaving it out and about. Now, I did stage it in a corner of my kitchen that is not my typical workspace. So this counter, though counters I consider to be a workspace, this particular counter in the corner of my kitchen is not something that I work from when I'm cooking. So I didn't mind storing it there to use as like long-term storage or like as a shelf. I typically like to put items that are for storage on a shelf. So I moved our coffee pot over because it was, when I first put it there, I put it in the corner with the coffee pot and it just felt too close together. So I moved the coffee pot to the other side and I really like the setup that it is right now. Okay, on to store number 2. In store number 2, it was quite the picker store. It was a hot mess express. I had never been to that store before, but I also don't avoid stores like that because I have watched American Pickers and my husband and I love that show. I love the idea of going into a really messy place and picking through to find the treasures. And this place was quite the mess. I wish I would have videoed the store to be able to show you that, but just imagine a teeny tiny aisle all the way around the store and just piles of stuff. It almost looked as if they had went to some deserted storage units, gathered up all their stuff and just brought it in and dumped it out. My friend told me they really need Lisa to come in and organize this place. I mean, it even had me feeling overwhelmed. So in that store, I was hunting, I was pecking, I was looking over everything, and I actually walked away with 3 items, and one of them ended up being my favorite find of the day. It was a cookie jar. It looks very vintage. It also reminds me of the post office for some reason, maybe because of the blue and the red. My dad worked at the post office his entire life, and it really makes me think of that time that he worked there and the era that he worked there. I love looking at it, and we have cookies in our home all of the time, so I thought it would be great to display our cookies, put it up on the shelf. Of course, I don't have it on the counter. I ended up putting it on our shelf in our kitchen to where I can see it. So things that you love and they make you happy, don't put them away. Store them in a place where they're displayed and where you can see them. So something else that from my childhood that is something I don't want displayed all of the time, but I want to see it because it reminds me of my childhood. It actually hung in my bedroom as a kid, is this little plaque. And so one solution that I came up with is hanging it inside my closet. It doesn't go with my decor, but having it in my closet, it's like I can look up there and it's like, oh, hi, I see you. You make me happy. So don't hide your treasures. Don't hide your precious things, your old pictures. Too much of a good thing is no longer a good thing. So you should have a minimal amount of memorabilia and really important items from your past and from your childhood, and find a good way to display them and store them so you can see them and love them. The next item that I found at that store was a 3-drawer card catalog. It was a tin and it had 3 drawers where you could put a card catalog in it, but I had another vision for that card catalog. The first idea that came to my mind was a sock drawer for my boys. Their bedroom is upstairs and they have a hard time keeping up with socks, finding socks, storing their socks. Oh my gosh, we have this big sock basket and it is like the sock basket of doom. It's absolutely horrible. So what they do is they go in my husband's drawer and they steal his socks. So I thought, well, I could use it as a sock drawer. So I decided for now to put it in the bottom of our bedroom closet, and put their socks in there, put little labels on there and get them some new socks so we can start over with some good socks that all match, and where they don't have to run upstairs when it's time to go to get socks. So we live on a farm and it seems like socks are everywhere outside all the time. So I really need to break them of that habit of wearing their good socks outside without their shoes and just taking their socks off and throwing them in the dirt. So that is one way I plan on using that 3-drawer card catalog. Another idea that I have, if I don't end up using it for that long term, is using it in my husband's shed as a place to store his tools. So separating his tools, putting labels on it, and then putting it in a spot where I can stack things on top of that for more storage. Okay, so item number 3 that I found there was a frying pan. I currently have Teflon frying pans from Pampered Chef, and over the years they have gotten scratched. My son, I think I bought them when I was pregnant with Peyton, because I actually sold Pampered Chef back then. Feels like everybody has sold Pampered Chef at one point. And I was pregnant with him, so he is 11 years old, so they are over 11 years old. Well, the Teflon on there is all scratched up, and as we know, Teflon is not good for our body. The metals are not good. So I'm really trying to weed out that dishware and that cooking ware and switch over to stainless steel. So in this store, I found a stainless steel frying pan for only $3, and it had a lid to go with it. I was so thankful. They were really good at that store. They would negotiate. Don't be afraid to negotiate, because typically thrift stores are getting items for free, and they are getting a lot of items coming through their doors. And the more that they can sell, even at $1, they are getting items in, selling it for $1. So don't be afraid to negotiate on a price. On to store number 3. At this store, it was probably my least favorite, probably because it had a very bad smell in it. This store, I didn't find many items. There were a lot of books that I looked through. Books, I absolutely love books, but I try not to buy books, and I try to just check them out from the library. A client I was decluttering for a couple of weeks ago, I was cleaning out his bookshelf, and he said, well, I guess I could just buy it again if I need it. And I thought, or you could just get it from the library. And he's like, the library? I haven't been to a library in years. And I was like, what? I go to the library every single week. I don't know if that's like a dying art, but I have taken my kids to the library every week, and we love checking out books, getting new books. The only pet peeve I have with the library is the fees. I typically am a slow reader, unless I am really into a book, but I am typically a slow reader, and not a lot of books grab my attention. So I read very, very slow, and because of that, I keep the book for a while, and because I keep the book for a while, I end up getting charges and fees. So thankfully, our library has a automatic renewal, and I don't get charged as much. Okay, so in that store, the only thing that I found that I walked away with was a bread basket. I had been looking for a bread basket, and this was the perfect one. I actually wanted 2 of the same type and the same size and the same kind, but I found one, and you know what? I'm still getting used to making bread on a regular basis, so I am okay with just the one. I'm actually going to line it with a dish towel and be able to rest my bread in there so it can rise, flip it over into a Dutch oven, which is still on my wish list. I am believing that I'm going to find one at a good price and be able to make bread on a regular basis. So that was a check off my wish list. Okay, on to store number 4, and the last store. We went into this store. It was very small. It was the smallest of all the stores that we went to. I didn't find a lot of items in there, but the one thing that I walked away with was a lamp for my daughter's bedroom. She used to keep a little lamp beside her bed, but we recently rearranged her room and moved that lamp to her desk. And so she had been living without a lamp beside her bed since we rearranged it, which has been about 2 months. And she's solely been depending on her Christmas lights that she has wrapped around her wrought iron bed to read her books at night. Well, I grew up with my mom saying, that's gonna ruin your eyes. Did your mom say that too? Well, I started saying that to her, your eyes, it's gonna hurt your eyes. I don't know if that really is true or not, but she would also get a flashlight out. So I had been on the hunt for a lamp for her. Though it's not on the mid-century modern side, it still fits with our decor. I really don't have a set style. I love mid-century modern, but then I love old and vintage, and I love farmhouse country. I just don't care, and I just want to buy what I want to buy. I say if it makes you happy, then get it. So I didn't have a lampshade to go with it, so I decided to steal the one from our living room for the time being so I can get a picture of what I want to look for in the way of a lampshade. I like the way it looks with the more modern rounded shade, so I think that's what I'm going to look for from now on. All right, so that wraps up my thrifting with my friends last Friday. I love all of the items that I got. They make me super happy, and that is what is most important. You can go to habitsandhome.com and look on the blog to see all of the recap of this video and all the pictures to see what I bought and how I styled it and how I'm using it in my house. While you are there, make sure that you sign up for my reset checklist. This is my daily reset checklist that I use each and every day to reset my home so I have a better tomorrow. All right, friends, I'll see you right here next time at Habits and Home.